Hello everyone, this is the history tutorial video for class 8. In the previous videos we have seen how the indigo became a very important Indian crop for the British Empire because imports of indigo into London was a huge thing back then. The Indian indigo was very much in demand and planters forced the indigo cultivators to cultivate more and more indigo. We will look at that and how it happened, what was the impact of the indigo cultivation in this video. We will look at all these. So let's begin. There were there were two main systems of indigo cultivation. Number one is the niche cultivation and number two is the rayoti cultivation. Within the system of niche cultivation, the planters produced indigo in lands that he directly controlled. So, a land where the planter is the direct master. He was in direct control of that land and he was cultivating indigo in that land, in that part of land. That was the niche cultivation. Niche means self, belonging to self. He either bought the land or rented it from other zamindars and produced indigo by directly employing hired laborers. So, he either bought the land from the zamindars or he rented the land from the zamindars and he himself employed the cultivators who would work under him. Now, what was the problem with the niche cultivation? The planters found it difficult to expand the niche cultivation, expand the area, expand the land in which niche cultivation would happen. Why? Because indigo could be cultivated only on fertile lands and these were already dense populated. So all the fertile lands were all densely populated areas already. If the planter wanted to expand the indigo cultivation, he would have to evict people from their homes, destroy their homes and then expand the indigo cultivation over there. Only small plots scattered over the landscape could be acquired. Planters needed large areas in compact blocks to cultivate indigo in plantations. If you have seen a plantation, if you have seen a farming land, it is generally in a rectangular shape or a square shape. Basically, it is very calculated, it's a very calculated piece of land. So it's either in rectangle or in square. Basically, it's in blocks. So indigo plantations also, indigo planters needed land in blocks, but the fertile lands on which the indigo cultivation could be done, those were scattered around a large area and they were densely populated, as I have said before. So these posed a problem for the planter. Where could they get such land from? They attempted to lease in the land around the indigo factory and evict the peasants from the area. They tried to evict the farmers from those areas, but this always led to fights, which always led to tensions. Nor was labor easy to mobilize. Labor was not easy to get. A large plantation required a vast number of laborers, and labor was needed precisely at a time when peasants were usually busy with rice cultivation. So rice cultivation was the main occupation of these farmers, but at that same time actually indigo plantations also needed laborers, and these rice cultivators, these rice farmers, they were kind of forced to leave their rice cultivation behind and forced to work on indigo plantations. Niche cultivation on a large scale also required many plows and bullocks. 1 bigha of indigo cultivation required 2 plows. So bigha is a measurement of a plot of land, a square block. So that 1 bigha of land in which indigo would be cultivated, it required 2 plows. This meant that a planter with 1000 bighas would need 2000 plows. Exactly, the exact calculation would be like this. Investing on purchase and maintenance of plows was a big problem. nor could supplies be easily got from peasants, since their plows and bullocks were busy on the rice fields. Again, exactly at a time that the indigo planters needed them. So, indigo plantation and rice cultivation, they actually collided in the question of time. On the question of time, they actually collided with each other. They clashed with each other. So when indigo plantations needed workers, they needed laborers, they needed farming equipments. All of the workers, all of the farming equipments, they were busy in rice cultivation, which is the main cultivation. Till the late 19th century, planters were therefore reluctant to expand the area under niche cultivation. Less than 25% of the land producing indigo was under this system. The rest was under an alternative mode of cultivation, the second mode of cultivation, which was the ryote cultivation. Under the ryote cultivation, the planters forced the ryots to sign a contract, an agreement, which was called the satta. At times, they pressurized the village headman to sign the contract on behalf of the ryots. So, the ryots were asked to sign a contract of cultivating indigo, and if they refused, the village headman was forced to sign the contract on behalf of them. Those who signed the contract got advance cash from the planters, but the loan committed the ryot to cultivating indigo on at least 25% of the area under his holding. The planter provided the seeds and the drill, while the cultivator prepared the soil, sowed the seed, and looked after the crops. The indigo villages, they were usually around the indigo factories owned by the planters. After harvest, after the crops were ripe and they were picked up, the indigo plant was taken to the vat in the indigo factory. 3 or 4 vats were needed to manufacture the dye, to manufacture the indigo plant, actually the dye which comes from the indigo plant. So 3 or 4 vats were needed to manufacture that product, that dye which came from the plant. The leaves stripped off the indigo plant were first soaked in warm water in a vat known as the steeper vat. This is the first vat. This was done for several hours. Each vat had a separate function actually. When the plants fermented, the liquid began to boil and bubble. Now the rotten leaves were taken out and the liquid was drained into another vat, the second vat, that was placed just below the first vat. In this second vat, this vat is known as the beater vat. The first one was known as steeper vat, the second one is known as the beater vat. The solution was continuously stirred and beaten with paddles. When the liquid gradually turned green and then blue, lime water was added to the vat. Gradually the indigo separated out in flakes, a muddy sediment settled at the bottom of the vat, and a clear liquid rose to the surface. So there was this a divide happened, kind of a divide happened, where repeated stirring and beating the indigo dye, which was raw material which was produced from the plant, it actually produced it was first green, then it slowly turned into blue, and then a clear liquid was settled on the top of the vat, while a dense sediment settled at the bottom of the vat. The liquid was drained off and the sediment, which is the indigo pulp, so the sediment was indigo pulp and the liquid that rose on the top, that was drained out. Now the sediment which was the indigo pulp, it was transferred into another vat, the third vat, which was called as the settling vat. So the steeper vat, the beater vat, and the settling vat, the 3 vats which were very important for indigo manufacture, and then pressed and dried for sale. So this sediment, this indigo pulp, which was transferred into the settling vat, It was then pressed and dried. When the crops was delivered to the planter after the harvest, a new loan was given to the riot, and the cycle started all over again. So the farmers who were initially tempted by the loans soon realized how harsh the system was. So we see that when the crop was harvested by the riots, it was given to the planters. Now, as soon as the crop was transferred to the planter to be taken to the factory, a new contract was signed, and a new loan was given to the farmer, and the cycle started all over again. So all over again he had to plant new seeds into the ground for indigo cultivation, and once again the whole process started. So the price they got for indigo that they produced was very low, and the cycle of loans never ended. So once a harvest has been done, the crops were given away to the planter, a new loan was given. Under that new loan, he had to again sow the seeds, he had to again cultivate the indigo plant, and when that indigo plant in the next year he harvested, he gave it away to the planter, another loan immediately he was given. So it was a never ending cycle, and the price that was being given to him in exchange of the indigo plant, it was very less. And also there were other problems. The planters usually insisted that indigo be cultivated on best soils, in which peasants preferred to cultivate rice. So rice was cultivated in the best plains, in the best of the soils, best quality alluvial soils, and actually rice needed that kind of soil. But unfortunately indigo also needed that kind of soil. So planters, in order to get better quality indigo, he forced the farmers to move aside from the rice cultivation, ignore the rice cultivation, and cultivate more and more indigo for the planter. Now the peasants, the farmers, they did not want to cultivate indigo on that soil. It was actually preserved, it was actually reserved for rice cultivation, because indigo had deep roots and it exhausted the soil rapidly. And after a harvest with indigo, after a year of indigo harvest, indigo cultivation, the land cannot be sown with rice. That would produce bad quality rice. So that is why the planters did not want to cultivate indigo on that soil in which he had beforehand thought of cultivating rice. Because see, rice was the staple diet, right? Rice was the primary food. If they don't cultivate rice, then what will they eat? What will they live on? So that's why rice was very important. Rice cultivation is very important to them. Now the planter is asking them to cultivate indigo on the field where rice was being cultivated. They can actually, for 1 year maybe they can try, but the problem is that once they try, that land will only cultivate indigo, because after indigo cultivation, rice cultivation is not possible in that land, because it degrades the soil quality very rapidly. It degrades the soil quality. So indigo plantation actually destroys rice cultivating fields, and the rice which will be cultivated afterwards, it will not be of good quality, it will be of bad quality, and the farmers and the peasants, they will not get good price for it. So that is why these were the problems of the indigo cultivation which the planters faced, because of the farmers resisted, and the farmers also resisted for good reasons actually. So this was the situation. Okay, so I am stopping here. In the next video I will discuss about how the farmers rose in rebellion, how the farmers actually revolted against this oppressive process of the indigo plantation, and we will discuss about the indigo revolt. Till then, bye.